pandemic, epidemic, whatever you want to call it, the real thing that's facing us today that we should be concerning ourselves with. There's not bodies in the streets right now, but there's zombies walking everywhere. And if you look at the statistics of health of people, it has nothing to do with any sort of, I can't even say the word here because I get censored for it, but you know what I'm talking about. That's not the real issue here. The issue here is that people are sick, and people are sick because of the quality of the air, because the quality of the soil and the foods that grow from that soil, the quality of the water, which is contaminated. But I would say it's mostly down to the food. I use that term loosely because a lot of what we see today, calling it food, is genetically modified Franken garbage. It's not real. It's not real food. Thank you so much, Jason. Good to see you, brother. And so I think about where we are today with this chemical called glyphosate that only started coming onto the scene when I was a young boy. And in the 90s and in the early 2000s, it got more and more prolific. And now we're seeing like 90% of our agriculture, conventionally grown agriculture, is contaminated with glyphosate. It's in the air, water, soil. It can't be washed off. It's Monsanto, and now Monsanto is owned by Bayer. And so this stuff is everywhere. It's everywhere. And if you're eating 100% organic to your best, you still have it in your body. Good chance. There was thousands of people tested. 80% showed positive in their urine. So not everything comes out in the urine, but glyphosate showed positive in 80% of the people who filled up a cup, and they showed that's glyphosate. Glyphosate is what is known as a weed killer, a chemical desiccant, an antibiotic, meaning it kills off life, it kills off microorganisms in the soil. But does it stop there? I mean, you see these pictures of people spraying it, wearing these hazmat suits, covering their face with this, walking around. You see people around here too, trying to get weeds, right? And they're going after dandelions. They're going after whatever you think is not necessary in nature, trying to conquer nature by getting rid of it. But basically it's to get bigger yields. It's because there's monocropping, and you see corn, wheat, soy, canola. These are heavily contaminated foods. That's not where it ends either, though. All the breakfast cereals for the kids, the big General Mills, Kellogg's, all that stuff, contaminated. Everything contaminated. So what is that doing to us? That, with technology in everyone's hand, people watching TV more, this whole situation over the past 2 years to try to help people stay safe has only gotten people sicker. Businesses closing, people getting more depressed, more stress on the mind creates more stress on the body, creates more stress on the spiritual life. So everybody is feeling it. Everybody's feeling it. So like Jiddu Krishnamurti said, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. We live in a profoundly sick society. 70% of people in our country are overweight. 42% of people in our country are obese. And 1 in 5 people in our society are morbidly obese, knocking on death's door. I just saw an interesting video about a man who is an enrolling officer in the Army. He said that most people coming out of high school can't even qualify for the basic training because there's so many obese kids now. The childhood obesity rate is skyrocketing, and at this rate, it's going to be about 60% minimum in the next 10 years or less, 5 years probably. So that's not my statistics. That's people in science. That's people in the military. They're showing their charts and graphs and how they're struggling to find people. And the military is probably healthier than others because they represent less than 1% of the population. So think about that. Think about all the kids glued in front of a screen all day long. Kids today, about an average of 5 hours in front of a video game a week. And most of them I know are more. Why do kids need iPhones? Why do kids need to be in the Oculus? I get it. I was playing Atari 2600 and a Nintendo Entertainment System when I was a young tweener, and before that when I was in elementary school. But I was certainly not allowed to be watching and playing that hard. So I don't think video games are completely terrible. I'm not a fan of them. A lot of them are pushing a lot of stuff that I don't agree with. violence, desensitizing us to violence. I believe in freedom of speech, but why can't we entrain people to be focused on health and wellness? Why can't we have serious conversations from our government regulatory agencies and people like Lord Fauci, who, is pushing us to go get inoculated, instead of talking about the real issue is the massive amount of people that are massive, that are obese, and that have pre-existing conditions that whenever some kind of super bug comes along, it's going to decimate people because we're wiping out our environment, we're over sanitizing, using so many antibiotics, and those fungi, bacteria, whatever, viruses, those are all going to get stronger, and the bodies are getting weaker, more susceptibility to getting disease. And so we're seeing the sperm count in men lowering, the women's ability to have children is lowering significantly, and we're seeing every marker of health getting worse. The prognosis looks worse and worse. So how do we know the problems now, how do we change it? We're not relying on our government anymore because we know less than 1% of the agriculture is organic. So how do we do it? We formulate communities, we educate people, we inspire people, we show up every day, we repeat ourselves like me every day, repeating, saying the same thing over and over. You can't afford organic. I hear this all the time. I can't afford organic. So what can you afford? Poison? You're going to eat poison because you can't afford it? You got to eat something. So what are you going to eat? Poison? I mean, I used to go to the supermarket when I was first diagnosed with brain cancer, and I had radiation and chemotherapy treatments, and I was on all kinds of medications. I didn't know what I was doing. I was in a fear mode, low vibrational fear mode. But I knew that I had to take care of my health. I knew that the gut was the pathway to all health or sickness. So I started juicing, and I was on food stamps and disability, living in a basement full of black mold, and I started buying produce, well, to the tune of about $280 to about $350 a week, and juiced that stuff. I bought a used juicer, and I just focused exclusively on healing myself. But when people lose track of us, when they get sick with something, and then they get better, they go right back to the way they were, instead of entraining their bodies, committing to permanent lasting change. This diet idea is ludicrous because diets, your body's yo-yoing, your body's relying on willpower, it's not going to last. So what do we have to do? We have to educate ourselves about the poison, the massive amounts of poison that are going into our body. This isn't some scare tactic to get you guys to, join me in my business, which would be a great idea, because then we can exponentiate this mission affordably for people who think organic's too much money to spend. When you break down what you spend every day and you look at it and say, well, I went to Starbucks and I had a coffee every day for the last year, 3 years later, you realize that costs you about 10 grand for grandes every day. So where are your priorities at, y'all? Where are your priorities at? If your priority is not health, it will be at some point when you lose it. And some people never make it their priority. They're sick and they're, woe is me, I'm a victim, woo-hoo-hoo. Okay, I do feel bad for people that are sick, but you know what? Most of this is unnecessary and it's avoidable if people take their health into their hands and make it their top priority. That's it. That's all there is to it. Make your health your top priority. If you don't, well, you're going to be paying a whole lot more than organic food prices to get yourself back to health. You might as well start buying some health insurance. You might as well start investing in the time you're going to be in the hospital, and you're going to be on all kinds of pharmaceuticals, because that's a money-making industry for these people. They just want to keep making more and more money off of you and me and everyone they can. They never try to heal or cure anything. All they do is treat, and all they do is keep you coming back, managing symptoms. So what do you say? Get with me. Let's do this thing. We can do this together. It takes a movement of many, not less than 1% of the people that we have right now doing this. You look at the statistics and you tell me what's going on in the world right now. If you're not fed up with the way people are being fed up, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to close it with some of these Black-Eyed Susans for a little peace and joy and love in your day. I hope you guys are doing well. Stay blessed, my friends. Love y'all. Look at that. Peace. Have a great one.